There comes a time in a woman's life when the world finally slows down long enough for her to catch her breath, stand tall, and own every scar, every secret, and every story etched into her soul. That moment often arrives at 39. And for the woman who once walked through life with the armor of avoidance, shielding herself from intimacy, dancing away from vulnerability, mastering the art of keeping her heart just out of reach, 39 is not the end of her allure. It is the ignition point. Because here's the truth, age doesn't diminish her, it distills her. Just like old wine, she doesn't need to be sweet for everyone's taste. She doesn't need to fit into anyone's hurried definition of ready or easy. She has matured into something richer, bolder, more intoxicating than what most people could ever handle in their impatience. At 39, an avoidant woman has survived the battles that no one saw, the internal wars of self-doubt, the fear of being consumed, the tug-of-war between craving closeness and pushing it away. Every year has polished her not into something fragile, but into something untouchably alluring. She no longer competes with youth because youth has nothing on experience. She doesn't chase approval because her silence now commands respect louder than any shout. And while some might think that 39 is the age where options narrow, the opposite is true. For her, 39 is the age where the shallow noise of attention fades, leaving only the echoes of those who are strong enough to step closer. She is magnetic not because she tries, but because she no longer has to. This allure is not about lipstick shades or perfect dresses. It's not about how many heads turn when she walks into the room. It's about presence. It's about the way she can look right through pretense and see truth. It's about how she can walk away without flinching, yet love without limit when she finally decides you are worthy of her trust. At 39, her boundaries are no longer walls of fear. They are gates of discernment. She knows what to let in and, more importantly, what to shut out. Think about old wine. It is not defined by how quickly it was poured, but by how long it was willing to wait. Its flavor deepens because of patience, because of time, because of pressure. That is her at 39. She is not afraid of the silence between conversations, the pauses between relationships, the stillness of her own company. In fact, she thrives there. And that is why she is untouchable, because she doesn't need anyone to complete her. She simply chooses who is worthy enough to join her. So today, I want you to see her not as unreachable, but as someone who has refined herself into a masterpiece of quiet power. Because when an avoidant woman turns 39, she no longer hides her fear of love. She transforms it into the fuel that makes her irresistible. She doesn't become easier to reach, but she becomes impossible to forget. And if you've ever been captivated by one, you know this truth: her allure is not a phase. It is the permanent glow of a soul that has faced herself and chosen to rise. There is a profound difference between being alone and being lonely. Most people spend years running from solitude, filling their days with distractions, noise, and shallow company, terrified of the silence that comes when the world shuts down. But an avoidant woman, by the time she reaches 39, has walked through silence so many times that it no longer intimidates her. It empowers her. For much of her life, she may have used solitude as a shield. Avoidance was her protection. She kept herself detached, always pulling back just before vulnerability could take root. Solitude felt safe because intimacy felt dangerous. And in her younger years, it may have seemed like she was hiding. But with age, that same solitude evolved into something different. It became her sanctuary. She doesn't just endure being alone, she thrives in it. And here is where the allure begins to intensify. Because someone who has mastered solitude doesn't cling. She doesn't chase. She doesn't beg to be chosen. She knows her worth because she has proven to herself that she can stand without anyone else holding her up. And this kind of independence radiates like a magnetic field. People feel it in her presence, the unshakable calm, the steady ground, the way she can be fully content in her own company. At 39, she no longer wastes energy fearing abandonment. You cannot abandon someone who is at home with herself. And this realization transforms her. She doesn't demand attention out of insecurity, she commands it out of quiet strength. She has mastered the ability to enjoy dinner by herself, to travel alone, to read late into the night with no need for anyone to validate her existence. And paradoxically, it is this very self-sufficiency that makes her so alluring, because it's rare, it's intoxicating, and it's deeply attractive. Think of how most relationships struggle. One person clings while the other pulls away. But when a woman has mastered solitude, she breaks that cycle. She doesn't suffocate anyone with neediness, and she doesn't crumble if someone pulls back. Instead, she gives space effortlessly because she herself is comfortable in space. This changes the game entirely. With her, there is no desperation, no manipulative demand for constant reassurance. She chooses connection not because she fears being alone, but because she genuinely desires partnership. And that distinction makes all the difference. Her allure lies in this: she is not afraid to walk away. She knows she will be okay because she has been okay many times before. That unshakable confidence makes her untouchable. Men and women alike sense it immediately. She isn't here because she needs you. She's here because she wants you. And when someone knows they are wanted but not needed, it stirs a powerful sense of respect and admiration. This mastery of solitude also gives her a kind of depth that cannot be faked. Alone time has given her space for reflection, for healing, for understanding herself on levels many never reach. She has faced her fears, sat with her emotions, wrestled with her shadows. She knows her triggers, her boundaries, her passions, and all of that work makes her presence richer. When she engages with someone, she brings her whole self, not fragments. She speaks from a place of self-awareness that can disarm even the most guarded hearts. And here's the irony. The very thing that once made her avoidant, the preference for distance, has now made her magnetic. Because she doesn't enter relationships blindly. She doesn't lose herself in them. She stands rooted, unshaken, and chooses deliberately. And that deliberation makes her love rare. Rare things by nature are valuable. And valuable things by nature are alluring. When she walks into a room, you can sense it. Not because she's the loudest or the most decorated, but because she carries herself like someone who doesn't need validation. There's no hunger in her eyes, no desperate search for approval. Instead, there is a calmness that says, I am enough, I am whole, and I am not afraid to stand alone. That is the kind of energy people cannot resist. Mastering solitude also frees her from the anxieties that plague others. She doesn't panic when someone doesn't text back immediately. She doesn't unravel if plans fall through. She knows how to redirect her energy into herself, her passions, her life. And that stability makes her a grounding presence in a world full of chaos. People are drawn to her because she represents something they crave: peace. But let's not confuse this with coldness. She isn't closed off, she's selective. She knows the difference between being alone and being lonely, and because of that, she never settles for relationships that drain her. She would rather be alone in peace than partnered in misery. And this unwavering standard makes her rare in a world where so many compromise just to avoid being alone. At 39, the avoidant woman who has mastered solitude becomes untouchably alluring, not because she is unreachable, but because she has proven that she is complete. She doesn't need you to validate her existence. She doesn't need anyone to define her worth. And when someone steps into her life, she doesn't ask them to fill a void. She invites them to share a cup already full. That is why she radiates irresistible strength. That is why she is magnetic. That is why, like old wine, she becomes richer, deeper, and more unforgettable with time. One of the most striking transformations that happens when an avoidant woman turns 39 is the way she redefines her boundaries. In her younger years, those boundaries often looked more like walls, high, impenetrable, and built from fear. She used avoidance as a way to shield herself from pain, intimacy, and the possibility of rejection. Those walls kept people out, but they also kept her locked inside. And while they offered protection, they also created isolation. But with age, something remarkable happens. She learns that boundaries are not the same as barriers. Boundaries are not walls, they are gates. And those gates do not exist to keep the world away, but to filter it wisely. By 39, she understands this difference better than ever, and that understanding elevates her presence into something magnetic. The key is wisdom. In her youth, her avoidance was reactive, a reflex to past wounds, a shield to cover fears of abandonment or engulfment. But at 39, she has seen enough of life to know that not everyone deserves access to her. She has been burned by giving too much too soon, and she has felt the sting of letting in people who only came to take. Those lessons taught her discernment. They taught her that her energy is not infinite and her love is not for the careless. So now her boundaries are no longer born of fear, they are born of wisdom. She doesn't close herself off entirely. She simply opens her gates selectively. She knows who to let in, and more importantly, she knows who to keep out. And that discernment makes her incredibly alluring, because people sense it. They sense that access to her is not automatic, that her presence is not something to be taken lightly. She doesn't give herself away cheaply, and that scarcity makes her invaluable. Imagine walking into a castle. Some castles are broken, their gates wide open, anyone can wander in. But the most majestic castles have fortified walls and carefully guarded gates. You cannot simply stroll in, you must be invited, chosen, trusted. That's her at 39. She is that castle, refined, radiant, untouchable, not because she refuses connection, but because she has learned to value it so deeply. What's fascinating is how this changes the dynamic of her relationships. In her younger years, she might have oscillated between shutting people out completely and accidentally letting in the wrong ones. Now, she doesn't waste time on either extreme. She doesn't ghost people out of panic, and she doesn't hand over her heart to those who haven't proven their worth. She creates a middle ground, a place of discernment where only those who respect her gates are allowed entry. And let me tell you, this is magnetic. People are drawn to what they cannot easily have, but unlike manipulation, which plays games to create artificial scarcity, her allure is authentic. It's not that she withholds to tease. It's that she genuinely values her energy. She knows her worth, and she expects others to know it too. If they don't, the gates stay shut. The beauty of this transformation is that it doesn't make her cold, it makes her powerful. People respect what they cannot take for granted. They respect what must be earned. At 39, her boundaries create an aura of dignity, one that commands attention without her saying a word. She doesn't need to announce her standards. She embodies them. She doesn't need to warn people about how she expects to be treated. Her very presence makes it clear. This is where allure deepens, because allure is not about surface attraction, it's about the energy someone carries. When an avoidant woman turns 39, her energy shifts from defensiveness to discernment. Instead of keeping everyone out, she invites the right people in, and when you're invited in, you know it's special. That sense of exclusivity makes her unforgettable. Her boundaries also allow her to give more freely to those who make it through her gates. Because she's not scattering her energy on everyone, she has the capacity to pour deeply into those she trusts. This depth of presence is intoxicating. Imagine being with someone who doesn't just give you fragments of attention, but gives you her full, undivided self when she chooses you. That's the power of her refined boundaries. They don't diminish her connections, they intensify them. And let's be honest, boundaries are attractive because they show self-respect. A woman with no boundaries is easily drained, easily manipulated, easily forgotten. But a woman with strong, wise boundaries commands memory. She stands out because she values herself. At 39, this avoidant woman has finally turned her once rigid walls into wise gates. She isn't avoiding love, she's curating it. She isn't pushing people away, she's choosing carefully. And that choicefulness makes her magnetic. Think of wine again. Poorly stored wine spoils. But wine stored properly, guarded with care, preserved with intention. That wine ages into something extraordinary. That's her. Her boundaries are the cellar that protected her essence. And now at 39, she's ready to pour into the right glass. And when she does, the experience is unforgettable. So understand this: when you meet a woman at this stage, you are not dealing with someone who is careless with herself. You are dealing with someone who has refined herself into something rare. If she lets you in, it's because she sees something in you that matches her wisdom. And that privilege is worth more than gold. Her boundaries are not there to push you away. They're there to test if you are worthy to stay. And when you pass that test, you don't just meet a woman, you meet an experience, a presence, a force of nature who has become untouchably alluring through the power of her wisdom. There's a kind of beauty that turns heads instantly, youthful radiance, the freshness of a new face, the kind of beauty the world chases and consumes quickly. But then there's another kind of beauty, the beauty that lingers, that deepens, that refuses to be forgotten. At 39, an avoidant woman steps into this second kind of beauty. she learns that allure is not in the surface, but in the depth of her being. In her earlier years, like so many women, she may have wrestled with appearance. The pressure to look perfect, to be admired, to fit into society's mold. It was heavy. For the avoidant woman, appearance often became part of her armor. If she looked good, she could control the narrative. If she looked desirable, she could decide when to pull away and when to allow closeness, always holding the upper hand. But over time, she realizes that appearance alone is shallow currency. It buys attention, but not respect. It buys admiration, but not devotion. By 39, she has lived enough to know this true allure comes from depth. And depth is not built in front of a mirror. It is built in the soul. It is built in the quiet moments when she faced her fears. It is built in the storms she endured, in the heartbreaks that shaped her, in the nights when silence pressed hard and she had to choose between breaking or rising. That's the fire inside her now. Calm, steady, undeniable. People sense it when they meet her. They may first notice her physical presence, but what keeps them is her energy. It's the way she listens with her whole being, the way her eyes carry both softness and steel, the way she can sit in silence without fidgeting, creating a space that feels grounded and real. That's allure, emotional depth that cannot be imitated because it has to be lived. You see, superficial beauty can be copied. Makeup trends, fitness routines, fashion choices, anyone can follow them. But emotional depth, that cannot be faked. You cannot Google search wisdom. You cannot buy resilience. You cannot Photoshop soul. Those things only come from living, from falling, from rebuilding, from confronting yourself over and over until the raw truth becomes your foundation. At 39, she carries that truth, and it shows in the calm fire she radiates. Calm, because she no longer feels the frantic need to prove herself. Fire, because she has not lost her passion, her intensity, her hunger for life. The combination of calm and fire is rare. Most people are either too restless or too resigned. But she is balanced, and that balance is magnetic. Her allure is also in her ability to see beneath the surface of others. Because she has cultivated her own emotional depth, she has the capacity to notice subtleties others miss. She sees pain hidden behind laughter. She senses insecurity hidden behind arrogance. She can hold space for someone's vulnerability without judgment because she knows what it feels like to wrestle with your own. This makes her deeply attractive, not because she entertains superficial games, but because she creates an environment where truth feels safe. And here's what makes her unforgettable when she loves. She doesn't just offer companionship, she offers depth. She doesn't just share moments, she shares meaning. A conversation with her lingers long after it's over. A look from her carries volumes. A connection with her feels richer because she isn't interested in surface-level exchanges. She wants real. And in a world drowning in shallow interactions, her depth feels like oxygen. This emotional depth also gives her allure in the way she carries herself. She doesn't chase trends desperately or fear aging as a loss. She embraces it as evolution. She knows her worth is not tied to the number on her driver's license or the reflection in the mirror. It's tied to the essence she radiates. And when someone believes this deeply in their own value, they don't beg to be noticed. They don't force attraction. They simply embody it. That embodiment is irresistible. And think about it, old wine doesn't try to be sweet like the younger bottles. It doesn't apologize for its boldness. It simply is what it is, richer, deeper, more complex. That's her at 39. She doesn't need to soften herself to be liked. She doesn't need to dilute herself to fit in. She has embraced her complexity, her layers, her contradictions, and that complexity is her allure. Another layer of this emotional depth is peace. Many women in their 20s are still figuring themselves out, constantly shifting, constantly comparing, constantly doubting. But at 39, the avoidant woman has made peace with who she is. That peace is powerful. It creates a grounded energy that feels safe, steady, and rare. People are drawn to it not because it shouts, but because it whispers. Here is someone who knows herself. So let's be clear. True allure is not in the curves of her body or the shine of her skin, though those may still be there. It is in the way she carries her soul. It is in the way she has faced storms and emerged not bitter but stronger. It is in the way her calm fire reminds you of something timeless, something you cannot forget. At 39, the avoidant woman proves that allure has nothing to do with age-diminishing beauty. In fact, Allure grows with age, because allure is not about appearance at all. It's about depth, and depth only comes with time, with trials, with truth. And that is why she becomes untouchably alluring, like old wine, because she embodies not just beauty, but depth, and depth is unforgettable. When we talk about avoidant women, most people imagine distance walls and fear of closeness. And for much of her life, that has been true. Avoidance was her shield. It was the instinct that protected her from being consumed, from being abandoned, from feeling like she had no control. But shields, while protective, are also heavy. They limit not only what comes in, but what goes out. They keep danger away, but they also block love. At 39, something shifts. She no longer wields avoidance as a desperate shield. She begins to transform it into something more refined, more intentional, a choice of discernment. That transformation is what makes her untouchably alluring. Let's break this down. In her 20s and early 30s, avoidance often looked like running. Running from intimacy, running from vulnerability, running from situations where she might lose herself. To her, closeness felt like a trap, so she kept her distance. And while it kept her safe, it also left her feeling misunderstood, isolated, and sometimes even empty. But through experience, through heartbreak, through failed attempts, through self-reflection, she begins to realize something vital. Avoidance doesn't have to be fear-driven. It can be choice-driven. It can evolve from a reflex into a filter. Instead of running from everyone, she can choose to step back only from the wrong ones. Instead of blocking love entirely, she can discern which love is worthy of her openness. By 39, this shift is profound. She no longer pushes away because she's scared. She steps back because she knows what doesn't serve her. That's discernment. And discernment is power. Think about the difference between rejection out of fear and rejection out of wisdom. When it's fear, it feels panicked, abrupt, cold. But when it's wisdom, it feels calm, clear, firm. She doesn't need to justify or explain endlessly. Her energy says it all. She knows who she is, what she wants, and what she will no longer tolerate. And that clarity makes her radiant. This transformation also shifts how people perceive her. In her younger years, her avoidance may have been misunderstood as coldness or indifference. But now it's not about being cold. It's about being selective. There's a huge difference. People sense that she's not running aimlessly anymore. She's choosing carefully. And that choicefulness adds to her allure. Because when she does open up, when she does let someone in, it's not accidental, it's intentional. It means they've passed the test of her discernment. That makes her love rare, and rare things are irresistible. Her discernment also gives her an unshakable aura of confidence, because she no longer says yes out of guilt or fear of being alone, or the pressure to conform. She says yes when it aligns with her truth, and she says no without apology. This self-possession radiates in her body language, her tone, her silence. People can feel it. She is no longer driven by fear. She is guided by wisdom. This is where the metaphor of old wine becomes powerful again. Young wine can be unpredictable, sometimes sweet, sometimes sharp, often unstable. But old wine, it has matured. It has refined its taste. It doesn't try to be everything to everyone. It has settled into its true essence. That's her avoidance at 39. It has matured from a chaotic shield into a refined filter. And here's the irony: by no longer fearing closeness, she actually becomes more open to it. Because discernment allows safety. When she knows she can choose wisely, she doesn't have to run. She can lean in, she can embrace, she can trust, because she knows she won't betray herself in the process. This shift is magnetic. People are drawn to her because she no longer plays the push-pull game of fear. She's clear, she's steady, she's real. And think about how rare that is. So many people, even into adulthood, still make choices out of fear. They stay in relationships out of fear of loneliness. They say yes to things they don't want out of fear of rejection. They keep quiet out of fear of judgment. But she has moved past that. She doesn't fear solitude anymore, as we explored earlier, and she doesn't need approval to validate her choices. That liberation allows her to act out of discernment instead of fear. And that kind of authenticity is magnetic. Her allure also grows because she embodies integrity. When she chooses you, you know it's not by accident. It's not because she was desperate or afraid to be alone. It's because she truly saw something in you worth opening up to. That makes every connection with her deeper, stronger, and more unforgettable. So understand this: At 39, her avoidance is no longer a prison. It's a power. It's not a chain that holds her back. It's a compass that guides her forward. She doesn't live in panic, keeping everyone out. She lives in discernment, choosing with care. And this discernment makes her presence magnetic because people crave clarity, and she radiates it. When you encounter her now, you don't see a woman running, you see a woman standing. You see someone who has taken her fears, her shields, her walls, and transformed them into gates of wisdom and choices of power. That transformation is what makes her untouchably alluring. Because allure is not just about attraction, it's about trust. And when someone has moved from fear into discernment, you trust them more deeply. You respect their choices. And when they choose you, you never forget it. That is her at 39. That is her allure, matured, refined, and untouchable, like the deepest glass of old wine. For much of her life, love was dangerous territory for the avoidant woman. Love meant exposure. Love meant the risk of abandonment. Love meant putting her heart in someone else's hands and watching them walk away. Or worse, watching herself disappear in the process. And so she ran. She built walls. She guarded herself, believing that to stay whole, she had to stay away. But by 39, something extraordinary happens. She learns that loving deeply doesn't have to mean losing herself. She learns that love, when paired with maturity, becomes not a threat but a gift. And this realization transforms her allure completely. When she was younger, love often felt like a battlefield. On one side was her longing for intimacy, for connection, for the kind of bond that would anchor her. On the other side was her terror of being consumed, controlled, or abandoned. That push-pull dynamic left her exhausted. It left her cycling between moments of closeness and sudden withdrawal. She wanted love, but the cost seemed too high. At 39, her maturity rewrites the script. She has lived enough, reflected enough, healed enough to know that losing herself is not the same as loving someone. The two are not inseparable. She understands now that love done right does not erase her, it amplifies her. And because she knows this, she can finally lean into love with a strength she didn't have before. What makes her so alluring now is that she doesn't approach love with desperation. She doesn't seek someone to fix her or complete her. She is already whole. She has already faced her solitude and mastered it. So when she loves, it is not out of fear, it is out of choice. That kind of love is rare, and rare love is magnetic. This confidence shows in the way she carries herself in relationships. She doesn't cling. She doesn't beg for constant reassurance. She doesn't lose her identity to blend into someone else's. Instead, she maintains her individuality, her passions, her voice. She stands beside someone, not behind them. And this equal footing makes her presence powerful. Think of how many relationships falter because one person loses themselves in the other. Their boundaries dissolve, their sense of self weakens, and soon resentment grows. But not with her, not anymore. At 39, she knows who she is. She has fought too hard for her identity to let it vanish. And paradoxically, this makes her love safer, steadier, more alluring. Because she can give fully without fear of losing herself in the process. Her confidence in love also means she no longer plays games. She doesn't need to manipulate or withhold to maintain control. She is not afraid of vulnerability because she knows she can stand even if it fails. That assurance is intoxicating. People sense it. They sense that when she says, "I love you," it's not a plea. It's a statement of strength. It's a declaration made from wholeness, not from need. This maturity also gives her the ability to love without control. In her younger years, fear made her crave control, control over how close someone got, control over when to pull back. But at 39, she learns to release that grip. She trusts herself enough to allow space. She knows she doesn't need to monitor love to protect herself. She trusts that her boundaries, her discernment, and her wisdom will keep her safe. This trust makes her love freer, lighter, and more magnetic. And here's the allure. When someone knows they can love without losing themselves, they become fearless in love. Fearlessness is captivating. Fearlessness is rare. And she radiates it in every interaction. Consider again the metaphor of old wine. Young wine may try to please everyone. Too sweet for some, too sharp for others. But old wine doesn't apologize for its richness. It knows its flavor. It knows its value. It offers itself fully, confidently, without fear of rejection. That's her love at 39. She offers it fully, not worried about whether everyone will like it, because she knows the right ones will savor it deeply. This confidence also changes the way she handles heartbreak. In her younger years, heartbreak might have shattered her. It might have sent her running back into avoidance, vowing never to try again. But now, heartbreak doesn't destroy her identity. She knows that someone leaving does not mean she is lost. She doesn't lose herself in anyone, so she cannot lose herself through anyone. That resilience makes her even more attractive because people sense her strength. They sense that her love is not fragile, it is fortified. And here's the secret: when she no longer fears losing herself, she can finally love with abandon. She can love passionately, fully, fearlessly, because she trusts that no matter what happens, she will remain herself. And that confidence makes her love not just alluring, but unforgettable. So when you encounter her at 39, understand this: she is not afraid to love you. She is not afraid to open up, to lean in, to connect deeply. But she will never vanish into you. She will never lose herself to keep you. And that balance of deep love without self-erasure is what makes her presence untouchably alluring. She is no longer a woman hiding behind walls of avoidance. She is a woman who has transformed her fear into wisdom, her fragility into confidence, her hesitation into fire. And when she chooses to love, it is a love like no other, steady, fearless, intoxicating. That is her maturity. That is her power. And that is why at 39, she becomes as untouchably alluring as old wine. Independence has always been the heartbeat of the avoidant woman. Even when she was young, even when fear kept her running, independence was her shield. She learned to rely on herself, to stand alone, to find strength in solitude. For years, that independence was defensive, a wall built to protect her from the pain of depending on anyone else. But at 39, that same independence takes on a new form. It's no longer about self-protection. It's about self-possession. It's about owning who she is, embracing her freedom, and radiating an energy that says, I am complete within myself, and that makes me powerful. And let's be clear, this independence is not coldness. It's not detachment. It's not the kind of independence that pushes people away to prove a point. It's the opposite. It's the kind of independence that draws people in because it is laced with strength, calm, and quiet confidence. It's the independence of a woman who knows she doesn't need you, but if she chooses you, it's because she truly wants you. And that is magnetic beyond words. Think about how many relationships are weighed down by neediness. One person leans too heavily on the other, clinging, demanding, suffocating. That desperation can drain passion. But with her, there is no desperation. At 39, her independence allows her to love freely, not out of need, but out of abundance. She doesn't take from you, she shares with you. She doesn't cling, she invites. She doesn't demand. You want to give, because her independence makes her generosity all the more valuable. Her independence also shifts the way she carries herself in the world. She walks into a room without apology. She doesn't seek validation from eyes scanning her. She doesn't need to perform to earn approval. She knows her worth, and it shows in her posture, in her voice, in her presence. People are drawn to her not because she's trying to be noticed, but because she radiates self-sufficiency. It's the energy of someone who is not asking, do you think I'm enough? But declaring silently, I already am. And let's be honest, that energy is rare. In a world where so many are chasing external validation, she stands apart. Her independence makes her untouchable, not in a way that isolates, but in a way that fascinates. It's the mystery of someone who doesn't chase, who doesn't beg, who doesn't crumble if ignored. She is magnetic because she doesn't need attention. Attention naturally gravitates toward her. Her independence also gives her an edge in love. At 39, she doesn't lose herself in relationships, nor does she demand constant reassurance. She has built a life she loves on her own. Her career, her passions, her routines, her sense of self. Anyone entering her world is a complement, not a necessity. That doesn't mean she doesn't value love. It means she values it more. Because she doesn't use it to fill a void. She comes whole, offering a complete self, and that makes her irresistible. What's even more magnetic is the paradox of her independence. Because she doesn't need you, her choice to be with you feels like the highest honor. Think about it. When someone clings to you out of desperation, it's flattering for a moment, but soon it feels heavy. But when someone strong, independent, self-sufficient chooses you, You feel chosen in the truest sense. You feel elevated, not drained. And that is the allure she carries at 39. Her independence also makes her unafraid of solitude. She doesn't rush into relationships out of fear of being alone. She doesn't tolerate toxic dynamics just to avoid silence. She knows how to be with herself, and she actually enjoys it. That self-contentment makes her love free of desperation. She can walk away if it doesn't serve her. She can wait if the timing isn't right. She can stand tall even in heartbreak. That kind of independence is magnetic because it communicates strength. It says, I'm here because I want to be, not because I have to be. Independence also brings with it resilience. She has faced life's storms alone, and she knows she can handle them. That resilience shows in her presence. When others panic, she remains calm. When others lose themselves in chaos, she stays grounded. People are drawn to that stability. They see in her someone who doesn't fall apart at the first sign of trouble, someone who doesn't collapse under pressure. That strength makes her not just alluring, but inspiring. And here's what makes her independence even more captivating. It doesn't come with arrogance. It's not the independence that sneers, I don't need anyone. It's the independence that quietly says, I am whole, and I choose to share my wholeness with you. That humility wrapped in strength is irresistible. She becomes magnetic not just in love, but in all areas of life. Colleagues admire her confidence. Friends respect her boundaries. Strangers sense her energy. She doesn't demand admiration, yet it follows her. She doesn't chase recognition, yet it finds her. Because independence has a frequency, a vibration that people feel. It's the energy of sovereignty, and it pulls others in like gravity. At 39, the avoidant woman no longer uses independence as a wall. She uses it as a beacon. It doesn't shut people out. It attracts the right people in. It says, I am strong, I am whole, I am free, and I choose connection from that place of power. And that is why her independence is magnetic. So when you look at her at this stage in her life, understand this: her independence is not distance. It is allure. It is her way of saying, I am untouchably whole, and that is what makes my love unforgettable. Like old wine, she doesn't beg to be tasted, she waits, knowing those who understand her depth will savor her richness. And in that waiting, in that strength, she becomes utterly magnetic. When you look at a woman who has reached 39 and lived with avoidant tendencies, you are not looking at someone untouched by pain. You are looking at someone shaped by it. Her scars are not hidden beneath the surface. They have been etched into her worldview, her choices, her fears, and her triumphs. For much of her life, those scars felt like a burden. They made her feel different, difficult, misunderstood. She thought they disqualified her from being loved fully. But by the time she reaches 39, something profound shifts. She no longer sees her scars as shameful reminders of the past. She begins to see them as proof of survival, as lessons carved into her very being. And here's the irony. What once made her feel unworthy becomes the very thing that makes her magnetic. Her emotional scars, far from repelling others, become the source of her allure. Why? Because scars tell a story. They speak of battles fought, heartbreak endured, lessons learned. And in a world that often craves authenticity but drowns in superficiality, her scars are real. They make her human. They make her relatable. They make her beautiful in a way untouched skin could never be. When she was younger, she may have tried to hide her wounds. She may have avoided vulnerability, convinced that letting someone see her rawness would scare them away. But now, at 39, she realizes that showing her scars doesn't repel the right people. It attracts them. The right ones see her scars and think, this woman has depth. This woman has lived. This woman knows pain, and yet she still stands. Her scars give her empathy. They allow her to connect on a deeper level because she understands suffering. She understands what it's like to feel abandoned, misunderstood, afraid. And because she knows those feelings intimately, she can sit with others in their pain without judgment. That kind of empathy is magnetic. It's healing. People are drawn to her not because she is flawless, but because she is real enough to hold space for their flaws too. Her scars also give her strength. Every wound she survived became proof of her resilience. Every time she picked herself up after heartbreak, she built another layer of toughness. Every time she faced rejection, she learned she could endure it. That strength radiates now. It shows in the way she carries herself, the way she faces challenges, the way she doesn't crumble under pressure. People sense it, and they are drawn to it. Strength forged in pain has a unique allure. It is unshakable. And let's talk about authenticity. In a world obsessed with filters and perfection, her scars are unfiltered truth. They are a reminder that beauty isn't found in being untouched. It's found in being transformed. When she wears her scars with pride, she radiates authenticity, and authenticity is magnetic because people crave what is real, and nothing is more real than a scar that whispers, "I survived." Her scars also make her mysterious. There's something about a woman whose eyes carry the weight of stories untold, whose silence hints at battles unseen. That mystery isn't about manipulation. It's about depth. People can sense that she has lived through storms they cannot imagine, and it makes them want to know her more. Not to fix her, not to save her, but to simply witness the beauty of her survival. But here's the deeper truth. Her scars are not just attractive to others, they are attractive to herself. By 39, she has learned to look in the mirror and honor her journey. She doesn't despise the woman who avoided love, who ran from intimacy, who stumbled in relationships. She honors her because that woman endured, that woman survived, that woman brought her here. And this self-honor radiates outward. When you value your own scars, others can't help but value them too. There's also a unique passion that comes from scars. When someone has been through the fire and emerged stronger, they live with an intensity that others lack. They don't take love for granted. They don't waste time on superficiality. They crave depth, honesty, realness. And that craving, that fire, makes them unforgettable. Think again of old wine. Its richness comes not from perfection, but from time, from pressure, from the subtle transformations that only aging can bring. A young wine may be pleasant, but it lacks complexity. Old wine carries layers. So does she. Her scars give her those layers, and those layers make her taste unforgettable. Her scars also serve as a filter. They repel those who can't handle depth. They repel those who only want easy love, surface-level connection. But they magnetize those who crave substance, who want to love someone with history, resilience, fire. Her scars become the silent test. Only those worthy of her depth will stay. And here's the final piece. Her scars make her fearless. When you've already been broken and rebuilt yourself, you stop fearing the cracks. She knows heartbreak won't destroy her. It already tried and she survived. She knows rejection won't erase her worth. It already happened, and she grew stronger. This fearlessness makes her love bolder, her presence stronger, her allure untouchable. So at 39, the avoidant woman who once hid her scars now wears them like jewels. They are not weaknesses. They are her crown. They are proof that she has lived, that she has loved, that she has endured. And in that endurance lies her irresistible allure. Her scars are no longer wounds. They are wisdom. And that wisdom is intoxicating. For most of her life, vulnerability was her greatest fear. As an avoidant woman, she equated vulnerability with danger. To her, opening up meant risking rejection. Letting someone see her softness meant arming them with weapons to wound her. Vulnerability felt like weakness, like surrender, like losing the very control that had kept her safe. And so she avoided it. She stayed guarded, protected, hidden. But by the time she turns 39, everything changes. She begins to realize that what she once saw as weakness is, in fact, her greatest strength. Vulnerability is not the thing that destroys her. It is the thing that frees her. It is not what makes her powerless. It is what makes her magnetic. Why? Because vulnerability is connection, and connection is the deepest human need. For years, she feared it. She ran from it. But slowly, through her scars, her independence, and her maturity, she learns that connection doesn't erase her. It expands her. Vulnerability doesn't expose her to destruction. It allows others to meet her in her truth. And here's the paradox. The moment she stops fearing vulnerability is the moment she becomes untouchably alluring. Because now she can show her heart without apology. She can say what she feels without calculating every risk. She can let her tears fall without shame. And in that rawness, she radiates power. People are drawn to her vulnerability because it is real. It is rare. It is courageous. In a world where so many wear masks, her willingness to take hers off sets her apart. Her openness becomes a lighthouse, guiding others to her authenticity. When she speaks her truth, people lean in, not because it's perfect, but because it's honest. Her vulnerability also makes her love deeper. In the past, she may have withheld affection, avoided intimacy, built walls to keep herself safe. But at 39, she learns that those walls don't keep her safe, they keep her lonely. And when she finally lets them fall, she discovers that giving her love openly is not a loss of power but a gain of freedom. Now, her love is richer, braver, more intoxicating because it comes without barriers. Her vulnerability also transforms her relationships. She no longer fears saying, "I need you." She no longer hides behind silence when she's hurting. She no longer masks her joy or suppresses her desires. She expresses herself fully, and that expression draws others closer. It allows intimacy to flourish, because intimacy can only grow in the soil of honesty. Her vulnerability becomes the bridge that connects her heart to another's. And here's what makes it even more powerful: vulnerability does not make her fragile. Quite the opposite. Only the strong can be vulnerable. Only those who trust their own resilience can dare to open their hearts. And at 39, she knows her strength. She knows she can survive heartbreak, rejection, and disappointment. That knowledge gives her the courage to open up, and that courage is magnetic. People often mistake invulnerability for strength. They think the one who never cries, never admits fear, never reveals weakness is the strongest. But that's an illusion. True strength is the ability to stand exposed and unashamed. True strength is saying, "Here I am, with my flaws, my fears, my scars, and I am still enough." That is the strength she radiates now, and it is irresistible. Her vulnerability also makes her more inspiring. Others see her openness and feel permission to open too. They see her willingness to admit imperfection and realize they don't have to be perfect either. Her courage becomes contagious. Her authenticity liberates others to drop their masks. That ripple effect makes her not just alluring, but transformational. There's also a sensuality in vulnerability. When she lets her guard down, when she speaks honestly, when she shows her softness, there is an intimacy that no performance can replicate. People are drawn not to her defenses, but to her openness. They are drawn to the way she makes them feel safe to be real, too. That is an allure no external beauty can match. Think again of old wine. Its allure lies not in being sealed away, hidden from the world, but in being poured, shared, experienced. Its richness is revealed only when it's opened. So it is with her vulnerability. All her wisdom, all her depth, all her strength is unlocked when she opens herself. And once she does, her allure is unforgettable. Her vulnerability also becomes her greatest filter. When she opens up, some will walk away. Some will be intimidated by her depth. But the right ones will lean in closer. Vulnerability reveals who is worthy of her and who is not. And she no longer fears that separation because she knows that her truth is worth protecting. And here's the ultimate transformation. She realizes that vulnerability is not about giving others power, it's about reclaiming her own. When she hides, fear controls her. When she opens, she controls the narrative. She decides to live honestly, boldly, unapologetically. That choice makes her not weaker but stronger than ever before. So at 39, the avoidant woman who once ran from vulnerability now walks toward it. She embraces it, she embodies it, and in doing so, she becomes untouchably alluring. Her power is no longer in her walls, it is in her openness. Her strength is no longer in avoidance, it is in authenticity. And when you encounter her, you will feel it. You will feel the pull of her honesty, the gravity of her courage, the magnetism of her rawness. She will not be flawless, but she will be unforgettable. Because nothing is more alluring than a woman who dares to be real. At 39, she doesn't just sip life cautiously, she pours herself fully into it. She knows vulnerability is not the end of her, it is the beginning of everything she was meant to be. And that is what makes her as untouchably alluring as old wine. And so, when we speak about the avoidant woman at 39, we are not speaking about fragility. We are speaking about a woman who has weathered storms, faced her fears, and come out not bitter but wiser, not broken but stronger. Her journey through avoidance, heartbreak, and solitude has not diminished her. It has refined her. Like old wine, her essence has grown richer with time, and now she carries a depth that cannot be faked, cannot be imitated, and cannot be ignored. She is not the same woman she was at 20 or 30. She has been remade, and that transformation is where her allure lies. Every scar she carries is now a badge of resilience. Every wall she once built has been transformed into a foundation of strength. Every fear she once ran from has now become the lesson that fuels her wisdom. She has learned that running from love does not protect her, it starves her. She has learned that independence does not have to isolate her, it can elevate her. and she has learned that vulnerability, once her greatest enemy, is now her most profound source of power. These lessons form the core of her magnetism. At 39, she no longer plays small. She no longer hides. She no longer lives to avoid pain. Instead, she leans into life with boldness, with courage, with fire. Her presence alone carries a frequency of confidence that pulls people toward her. They sense her maturity, her independence, her scars, her depth, her fearlessness, and above all, her openness. She does not need to demand attention. It flows to her naturally because she radiates the kind of authenticity that is so rare in this world. This woman is not untouchable because she is cold or distant. She is untouchable because she cannot be diminished. She cannot be reduced to someone's possession, someone's approval, someone's validation. She knows her worth too deeply for that. And ironically, it is this refusal to be owned that makes her irresistible. She loves freely because she does not fear losing herself. She connects deeply because she trusts her strength. She lives fully because she no longer fears being broken. That combination is rare, and it is breathtaking. What makes her allure so unique is that it is not born of perfection, but of imperfection embraced. She is not flawless. She is fearless in her flaws. She does not cover her scars. She displays them with pride. She does not pretend to be endlessly strong. She admits her vulnerability, and that honesty becomes her crown. Her allure is not surface-level beauty. It is soul-deep magnetism, and that is what makes her unforgettable. So when you encounter her at 39, understand this: you are meeting a woman at the height of her power. You are meeting someone who has made peace with herself, who no longer runs from love, who no longer fears connection. She has transformed her avoidance into wisdom, her solitude into independence, her scars into beauty, and her vulnerability into power. She is no longer merely surviving. She is thriving. And that thriving radiates outward, drawing others into her orbit like moths to flame. In the end, the avoidant woman at 39 is living proof that time does not diminish allure. It amplifies it. Like old wine, she becomes richer, deeper, and more intoxicating with every passing year. She is untouchable not because she is distant, but because she is complete. And that completeness, that wholeness, that fearless authenticity is what makes her as alluring as old wine, timeless, unforgettable, and utterly magnetic. My friends, thank you for walking this journey with me today. Thank you for opening your heart to these words, for allowing yourself to reflect, and for giving your time to a message that speaks not just about avoidant women, but about growth, healing, and the unstoppable power of transformation. If you are that woman, standing at the edge of 39 or already beyond it, hear me clearly: you are not behind, you are not broken, and you are not invisible. You are becoming. Every year has carved wisdom into you. Every scar has given you depth. Every challenge has built your strength. And now your presence is richer than ever before. If you love that woman, respect her. Honor her independence. Cherish her vulnerability. See her scars not as wounds but as wisdom. Because when she chooses to let you into her world, she is offering you a gift rarer than anything else. A love born not of need, but of choice, freedom, and power. This is not the end of her journey. This is her beginning. 39 is not a closing chapter. It is the moment the story becomes more compelling than ever. And if you are wise enough to see her truth, to savor her like the finest old wine, you will understand what so many miss: that allure only deepens with time. So I leave you with this: never underestimate the woman who has lived, who has healed, who has embraced herself fully. For she is unstoppable, unforgettable, and untouchably alluring. Thank you for being here today, for listening, for reflecting, and for growing with me. Until we meet again, stay strong, stay real, and never stop becoming the most authentic version of yourself. Goodbye for now, and remember, the best is yet to come.